I have to confess, this morning, the first thing I did was I scrolled my LinkedIn feed endlessly to find where the bottom is. I know I talk a lot about productivity improvement, and this is not the best way to start your day, but I'm learning. And today, I will be learning with you from somebody who's an expert in time management and productivity. Welcome, Bat, on my show. You are a time hacker in Tel Aviv. You work with global tech clients and promise them that you are going to have more done in less amount of time. And I'm curious, how do you do that? Is it even possible?
Hello, Ajay, and thank you for having me. Always a pleasure. And yes, I do promise clients all around the world that today it's possible to decrease workers' hours and days, 4-day work week and all of that. Very possible, but still get their productivity and efficiency levels up. So you don't need to just settle for having having the same amount of work done just for less hours. You can actually see an increase in how much employees get done if you take off hours and days. But it's not just taking those days and hours off, but you really have to give them an ecosystem of digital workflows to support their work. So then you can see that by decreasing hours, you increase efficiency. So it's not just by saying from now on, let's not work Sundays, and we'll see our productivity boosts in minutes. That's not enough to take off that day. You also need to incorporate digital workflows into everyone's digital ecosystem and teach them how to work smarter. And then you can see a massive increase in motivation and of course, in productivity, business goals, whatever you have going on that you want your employees to be behind and back you up with. And those web tools that we're now talking about, the digital ecosystem is a fairly new thing. I mean, this is something that we didn't have 20 years ago. This is all new stuff because the digital revolution began in 2009. So ever since that emerged, then all of a sudden we have multiple screens, apps, endless widgets, web tools, and all these features when integrated and combined and work together, then you can see a massive increase in productivity. So you really have to get all those tools and devices and all that tech talking to each other. And that's why I give that promise bluntly without even, blinking an eye, because I know it works really well, but you have to put the time into creating that ecosystem. And people think, oh, I'll just, hack time and I'll just do something different in the morning and I'll become more productive. It's much bigger than that. You need to invest a few months of your life in automations and getting all the tools to talk together. And then you can say that you did the work. So,
Okay, so we'll talk about the digital ecosystem, but before that, and I agree to everything that you said. How do you, let's say there is no device that is distracting you, how do you deal with the wandering mind itself?
Yeah, so wandering minds and unable to focus and finish tasks is a massive issue for many knowledge workers today. And basically, it's one of the reasons, it's one of those phenomena that came with the digital revolution that began in 2009 because of the way that our phones are designed and the way tech is designed. It's designed to hook our minds, grab our attention, and distract us so we can focus on their tools and their software, they're in social networks mainly. And that is why we're unable to focus on our own objectives and wishes and dreams. And all of a sudden we're distracted all the time to other things grabbing our attention. So first we have to understand that those distractions are a phenomena that is linked to the digital revolution, and it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's not that our minds change, our brains didn't change. And in terms of how to deal with all the distractions, I teach a whole method. Our viewers can go into my blog and search for a post that is titled How to Create a Buffer and Have a Life. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole system of three circles that we must work around: family, work, and friends. And once we create a buffer with these three circles in our lives, then we're able to start working on the digital ecosystem. And then all of a sudden we realize that we self-distract ourselves, even when there's no distractions and we've got everyone, we have a buffer we can create. There's no nothing grabbing our attention. Still, we self-distract ourselves because our mind is already hooked to those distractions, is already used to it so much that even when we can focus and there's nothing external taking our attention, we would still break our attention ourselves. So we also have to be aware of the fact that our mind is responding to all that digital chaos around us. Once we understand that as well, then we go into the third phase of this, of minimizing distractions, and then we can go into tech tools and use features like the D&D mode on our phone, which is really a great tool. Not many people, work with it, and I think more people should. And I also turn on sounds in my laptop. So I work with a web tool called Sounds. There's many, you can work with anyone you want, and it just creates, there's a variety, a library of white noise, and you just choose the one that suits you. And then your mind is able to go through alpha waves, basically into this calm, focused mind. And when I put those sounds on, when I start a day, I can, lose myself into 3-4 hours of deep work. I forget to even, refresh my coffee because those sounds work so really, really well. So those are the, digital tricks that you use to minimize distractions and get more focus. But you can only put them into action after you've done some analog work with your real life ecosystem, friends, family, and work. Because,
yeah, so I will put the link of that site where you can get the sounds. Is it any sound that increases focus, or is there a particular frequency that we need to listen? What exactly?
It's very subjective to every person.
Right.
So I prefer, for example, summer nights, but it really means nothing to anyone. It's like you have to go in and try them out and see what works for you. In my workshops, when I show the different variety in those libraries, so sometimes I meet people who are actually attached to that coffee place noise. There's coffee place hassle of glasses and silverware. And I'm like, how can anyone focus on that circumstances? And some people, oh my God, that's what I need. If I could only, imagine myself in a coffee shop, I can concentrate for hours. Oh my God, not me. So it's really, really subjective. I'm like, who are you people? How can you do that? So we all have very different sensitivities to certain sounds, and we have to figure out the ones that are right for us. And even when we do figure out the ones that are right for us, then there's the ones who are right for us right now, and that can change. I work with summer nights for a month, and then afterwards it won't impact me anymore, and then I'll move into forest wind or whatever.
Yeah, I think your website will also have it. But when this pandemic happened, somebody released the sounds of office. The printers.
I didn't know that.
Printers and people chatting about some work in the background. So some people feel that that gives them more focus.
Amazing. I didn't know that. Nice.
So Bat, what are the main principles to follow when starting consciously to manage your time?
So the systems basically that I teach is built in layers. So you really can't skip between the different steps. But I will focus now talking about the name of my system, which is Hime Your Time. And I'll just talk about Hime, but I just want to make sure that everyone of our viewers know that you can't, you have to work through the entire system. So there's no shortcuts. But understanding Hime is already a great improvement when you understand how you want to work more efficiently. So Hime stands for high impact, minimal effort. And I know that there's many productivity experts in the world today talking about how you want to swallow the frog and, begin with the hardest task of the day and finish it first thing in the morning. I'm not a big fan of those techniques. My techniques of a high impact, minimal effort says that you actually want to do the easiest thing for you first, and then you build momentum. And from that momentum, you move on to the next easiest thing on my list, and then to the next relatively easier thing on my list. So there's nothing easy, right? We always have to put some effort into it, but you really want to build your day through your own personal energy levels and communication preferences, and understand what would be the easiest thing for me to do first thing in the morning, and start with that, and then move on to the next easiest thing on my task list. But you need to also communicate that to your peers. So, for example, if people figure out that having a face-to-face meeting in the morning is really high energy, it demands high energy from them, it's not easy for them to do, and they would rather, if they had a choice, to schedule all their meetings to noontime after lunch, for example, then they would say, that would be my optimal Hime. My Hime day would be to start the day with my emails, working quietly, and then doing my phone calls or whatever, and only doing my face-to-face meetings at noon. And then they have to communicate that, of course, internally. So again, as I said, we won't be able to go into the entire levels of the system, but basically that's the guidelines. You really need to first understand your own communication preferences, and it's very subjective. For me, to be talking on the phone in the morning is a high energy activity. So I'll do my phone calls and my meetings if I could choose at noon. But for others, it'll be the other way around. So the key is to find your balance and make sure that you don't do your tasks out of your Hime for more than 20 to 30% of your day. So if there's 20, 30% of the day where you're doing things out of your Hime when they require a lot of attention and energy and focus from you, then that's your signal to change things around your schedule. And so ask yourself, when would be the easiest time for me in the day to be doing my face-to-face meetings, to be doing my emails, to be working on social media, to be doing my Excel sheets, to be listening to something, to be reading something, to be watching something. Each of those activities require a different time. And when I do it in a workshop, I give people a calendar, a weekly calendar, and I ask them to really sit down and start imagining their wish list, their wish week of when would be the easiest for me to conduct each and every one of those tasks. And that would be the optimal. That would be 100% Hime time. But there is no 100%. We are working in environments, and we have to match ourselves to our bosses and our peers. So we can't do everything on our own time, and we have to again suit ourselves to other people's. So we have to communicate that. Meaning, we have to make sure that no more than 20, 30% of the time, we adjust ourselves to other people's Hime, and then 70 to 80% of the time, we do things on our own Hime. And it's really all about easy does it. You just gain momentum, you start with the easiest thing on your list, and you go. And some people, for example, find it that going out for a jog at 6 a.m. is relatively easier rather than doing it at 4 p.m. at 9 p.m. But for others, I see people jogging in the park at 9 p.m. all the time. For me, I can't even begin to imagine doing that activity at 9 p.m. For me, my high time for a jog is probably 6 or 7 in the evening. Definitely not 6 a.m. So we're all very, very different. So we really want to understand ourselves better, understand our energy levels throughout your day, understand our communication preferences, and then decide when am I going to do what. So Hime is basically your way of understanding when am I going to do the things that I have to do.
I think that's very interesting, because lots of books on productivity improvement, they talk about, get up early and do your stuff early. It's rather than that, it's identifying what's your energy cycle, when exactly you are in like peak productivity state. And I recently interviewed a guy called Simon Ong, and he has written a book called Energize. That's all he talks about. Your energy might be at peak at 4 p.m., as you mentioned, rather than somebody who is waking up at 5 o'clock, like Stephen Kotler of Mindvalley. He has been on the show, and he wakes up at like 3 or 4 a.m. And by the time it's 8 a.m., he's already written 10 pages of the book, because he's like a serial book author. So it's different. People have it differently. And also the, eat that frog thing. I mean, there's a book of Brian Tracy, and I personally feel it a little bit intimidating to eat that frog first. And then what you mentioned that, do the easy things first, and that gives you sort of momentum. And then you can use that momentum to eat that frog, maybe at a later state, isn't it?
Right. I also want to emphasize that I don't generally believe in peak performance like to be productive. Like I can be productive all day long just for different things. So there's no peak time where I'm productive. No, I'm productive all day long, but just for different things. In the morning, I'm productive.
Right.
For yoga, for daydreaming, for whatever things I want to do in the morning, and then emailing and social media. And then at noon, I'll be productive to have my phone calls and face-to-face meetings. And then, the hardest task, doing finances and retirement plans and insurance, which people say to me, I'll never have time. I'll never have a Hime. It will never be easy for me to do my retirement documents, go through them and change plans and reduce my commissions on those things. I'll never find a good time for that, because it's never easy for me to do. It'll never be a relatively easier time for me to do. And then we work on that, like, what's the next best step that you can do that will be fairly easy to do. So let's say you want to talk to a friend about it. Maybe that would be the first step. And then you want to understand when is going to be your high for that conversation. So you just want to kind of take it down a notch and understand that all you have to do right now is just talk to a friend who happens to be a CFO and will happen to know whether your commission or that you're paying are excessive or not. Just have that phone call. Just keep it really, really easy and simple for yourself, and do it on your own, on your own terms. And then, okay, finish that task. Okay, now I know that my commissions are absurd and I have to do something about it. Next thing is writing an email. So when's my time for writing that email? And then scheduling that. So even if it would take 3, 4, 5, 6 months to finish that task around retirement commissions, it'll still be worth it because each of the steps is going to be done with the minimal amount of effort, and then the maximum impact will eventually come out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So your energy levels are related to the kind of activity you're getting in. And if you've identified that, then I think you can get your productivity improvement.
Right.
Okay.
Very true.
Great. So you're also very known in teaching people the workable tips that they can see results from. It's not like a theoretical course of productivity, and you're known to give them tools. So I was really wondering if you can give some tools, web-based or whatever, to our audience.
So many people ask me about web tools, and we have an abundance, today of web tools available to us. But the thing is that they will only take us to a certain point. They won't take us the whole thing, the whole way. They won't solve all your problems. People think that if you'll just work with Notion or with Todoist or with Trello, then all their project management issues will be solved. And that cannot be, further from the truth. Tools are just, as they're named, tools. And we have to have our own ecosystem of digital workflows and understand our needs, professional and personal needs. And then we can slowly but surely combine those web tools and automations into the workflow, but we shouldn't rely on them. They'll just be like, helpers. And we'll use certain features and we'll match the certain features to whatever that is we'll need. But we first have to have our own digital system and then adjust the tools to match us, not the other way around, because you see those tools are engineered in a certain process. And then we want to match ourselves to other people's thinking of how a project should go. And then we're getting lost inside a tool because we can't figure out how to work with it. So we really don't want to start with tools. Like that's the thing. Tools are not the solutions. They're actually even part of the problem. But we can use them as solutions once we have our own understanding of what is it exactly that we're looking for. Then we can just use one feature out of the tool that we want and not the whole package of it.
Fair enough. The one thing that I've struggled quite a lot in the past and even now is procrastinating. And procrastinating on important things. Like sometimes people say, okay, you identify, what is important and what is urgent and all those metrics that you create. Even when something is important, I procrastinate on them. And I know a lot of people struggle with this. So tell us some tips to how to do less.
Yeah, so procrastination, basically, I encourage procrastination. I encourage people to procrastinate and defer and postpone things to a later time. I do it within a managed system, so nothing gets lost. So that is how I encourage people to do it. I also teach that in ancient Egypt, procrastination meant waiting for the right time. So it's actually okay that you procrastinate. It's just because there's a lack of information, or there's a lack of circumstances, or there's a lack of tools that are preventing you from doing that thing that you're procrastinating on. Then you want to figure out what is that rejection that sits behind that procrastination. And then attend to that first. So it's okay that you don't want to act on something right now. And you want to wait for it for a different time and day. And I also have a video on that. It's not the whole thing, but you can really perhaps give the link to the viewers to where I talk a bit more about why procrastination is actually very good for you. And you shouldn't be trying to battle with it or diminish it in some way, but incorporate it into your lifestyle. And it's very also, relaxing to not try to push hard on things and allow them to happen for you. As a Mind Valley student and advocate, you're probably love that state of mind as well.
Yeah, sure. And that's a very good aspect to it, because I've had been in the situation of feeling guilt about procrastinating. for long. But when you've just said that, do it on purpose, then I looked back, there has been the cases when I delayed few things, but when I did them, they were really good quality. So yeah,
Right.
totally
There
agree
was
with
no friction. All of a sudden you did them and it was easier than you expected, and it was actually maybe even fun when you did it because it was the right time for it.
you.
Yeah. So waiting for the right time.
Yeah, sometimes I personally feel that, I'm just looking for perfectionism, which does not exist. But yeah, I still agree with you that if you kind of delay it to find the right time and then execute it, then yeah, procrastination is a good thing.
And then it will take half the time, by the way. You're also saving time
yeah,
by procrastinating.
yeah.
When you do it at a better time and place for it, all of a sudden it's easier and it's faster.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll tell you the one thing very quickly is if I have a deadline about something, what I do, let's say I have to finish some writing a speech within a week, right? So what I'll do is I will start thinking about the subject today, and then I'll think about it every day. I might not write anything, or I might write 1 line or 2 lines or something. So I'll kind of collect ideas for the whole week. And then when I sit to write it, that will be probably 2 days before the actual deadline. All the thoughts come together, and then you have a very good structure because you've thought about it for some time. So I think it works really well.
I think that's perfect. It's perfect. It's grabbing the ideas as they come to you and then collecting them all and then sitting at your right Hime for writing that. You have to figure out what is the right Hime, and then also the environment and setting. And then when everything comes together in the right timing, then you're able to quickly put them all together into a product, into something that is a finished product of that you've just and it also comes around to why it's so important to daydream, which is also an issue that I mean, what you're describing basically can also be part of this intentionally sitting down and daydreaming and then just visioning what is it, and what's the look and feel of what you're trying to create, and then daydreaming about it every day for 5 minutes, and then writing down those ideas that came to you, and then eventually sitting down and wrapping it all together.
Is there something more to do with daydreaming? Because I saw one of your videos about daydreaming, how to increase your productivity.
Yes, so I encourage people to daydream as much as they can, at least 1 to 3 times a week. I'm sorry, a day, not a week, every day, because daydreaming is a lost art, lost human art, which we must encourage and incorporate into our day-to-day. Because again, ever since the digital revolution broke in 2009, basically we all stopped having natural daydreaming moments, because in every spare minute that we have, if we're waiting for a friend, if we're waiting in line, if we're waiting in traffic, whenever we just had a minute to daydream in the past, now it's being hooked by the device or devices. So we're all just going, like, oh, I'll just check my emails if I'm waiting for a friend. So I'll check my social media and I'll check and I'll check and I'll check. So what we're basically doing, that instead of just allowing our mind to wander, what we're doing is we're consuming more information. We're putting more consumption into our already chaotic minds, and we're not allowing our mind to process information. So it's like a computer. Basically, there's consumption, but there's also processing, and we have to allow that processing phase to get in to kick in. And we and the idea is that when we allow our brain to process information without consuming more, just letting it flow and just wander and just stare and gaze and daydream, just do nothing, not meditate. Basically, we're not trying to calm our thoughts or our mind. We're just allowing it to free flow completely. So basically, what we're doing is we're tapping into our frontal lobe, and our frontal lobe, that is situated here, is responsible to all our new ideas and insights and imaginary and visions and business development and personal development, all the hacks, all the aha moments that we get in life. They come from our frontal lobe, and we have to allow that frontal lobe to go into its optimal performance and process information for us, and then give us insights out of that process it's important that we allow our brain to process that information and get insights from it.
I'm finding it really useful because I am guilty of doing this. What I do is whenever I'm outside, like I'm in gym or just going to office, on the way, I just feel like I'm wasting my time, and I'm always having something in my ear. Now that you have audibles and audiobooks, so you just don't want to waste your time. You're like every time there is something I'm consuming all the time. And I think I really took your point.
Right. That's the point. That's the point where it's like endless consumption, and then our
Yeah.
brain just gets even more clouded.
Mm.
And we need to process information and daydream as much as we can. And I talk about it. There's a video. You can also link people to a video where I talk a little bit about how to daydream wisely. So have your capturing tool and put a timer so you don't get lost in time, and then allow your mind to wander. And you would be amazed of, how much insights you gain from those moments of not trying to be productive by reading more books or listening to another audio.
Yeah.
And that, when we get that moments of aha moments, that saves us precious time, because you get leaps, you get solutions that then cross through, all the hassle and cross through all the issues. All of a sudden you get those mind-blowing ideas that, just shorten time for you, and you get things done a lot quicker and more efficiently, just because you found a wise way to do them, not taking the long route. So putting the time to daydream will eventually circle around to saving precious time on our workday.
And I'm linking it to my previous argument that I gave, that if I have 7 days window to finish something, I will start it on day 5. And now I'm just, because I do write a lot of speeches to give, I'm not feeling that most of the speeches that I've written were actually written in a very short span of time, but the thinking time was much larger. And if, let's say, I am starting to write today itself, I'm going to take more or less the same time, or even maybe more, to finish the work. Yeah. Whereas if I'm giving let's say 80% of time thinking and then 20% actually writing, so it's a Pareto principle, right? 80-20 rule. So you get results quick.
Yeah, it's the Pareto principle, but it's actually it's right on spot. That's the thing. More planning, more strategizing, more daydreaming, more thinking, less executing, a lot less executing. And and then the results, and you get things faster and more accurate, more focused, and you don't get tired in the process. You enjoy doing the work, just because you're not trying to get results right on the spot, but you're actually allowing your processing time to take over, and that's how you become more productive.
Definitely. And I will encourage my viewers to go to your website. I'll put the links down here, and these kind of tools, there are so many, we cannot cover everything. I know that your productivity program lasts for the whole day.
2 days, actually. 2
days, okay.
Yeah, it's a 2-day workshop. So basically it's a 10 to 12 hour altogether, and then I split it into 2 days. So it comes around to what we began to talk about in the beginning of our conversation. So people think that, tag and hacking techniques, I'll just put up an app, or I'll just work with that. And it's not enough to just do this or that. It's a whole method that we need to come around to understand that there's no simple solutions.
Yeah, it's like, I got lost in the flood of apps that I installed. So I had like Todoist, and I had a Microsoft to-do list, and then a Google Calendar and whatnot. And then I was like, where exactly I did write my first task and which app was the second. So it's more important to really understand the core fundamentals before we jump onto finding a tool and start using it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly that.
Okay, cool. But only in the interest of time, I really want to talk to you more and get more details of the different tools and stuff on productivity. But let me ask you my one question, which I ask all my guests, and which is, what, according to you, are the top 3 skills or behaviors that one needs in order to be successful and happy, but schools are not teaching?
So first is to daydream as much as you can. Lost arts. That is really, really to tap into our human creativity and our human advantages. Humans, basically, is tapping to that is through daydreaming. And by the way, that would be our ultimate advantage over computers and AI and robots. Basically, it's our human creativity, and you tap into that creativity through daydreaming, through living in the world, like being outside, not connected to a device, but just letting our minds wander and getting aha moments. That is the competitive advantage we're going to be needing. We're going to need even more as AI takes over. So for sure, daydreaming and reading books, actual books, pen. No, not pen. I just want to say pen, paper, but paper books.
These books.
Right. Not digital. I mean, yeah, people love digital books too. Fine, yeah, go ahead. But when I sit on the beach, there's no device that can handle the sun. So I don't see how you can go with a digital book to the beach. So I don't do digital books. Paper books where you can grab and hold and get into and get lost in a good book. And what goes in your brain when you have a good book and you're involved in it, it's just so relaxing. And I think children today for sure don't even know that feeling. But us adults who do, we really want to have to train, want to put time into training ourselves back into reading, because the peace of mind that you get from it is priceless. So for sure, the second would be reading, and the third would be dancing, because dancing is
Wow.
yeah, for me, it's like if I could, teach my time hacking methods just so for everyone can have more time to dance. Dancing is really, really good for your health and your mind, and any kind of dance doesn't have to be any particular, but and actually also for kids, my dream is that kids would have mandatory lessons in school for dancing, just free dance, nothing, just put on music and let them dance. Just let them dance. And you'll see results. You'll see, remarkable results with their motivation and the concentration and their achievements and their health and wealth, and everything just comes by giving your physical expression a place to exist.
Yeah, I've asked this question to more than 70 people so far. Creativity and reading, they have come up, but dancing is the first time I'm getting this answer. And I'm totally agreeing with you on that, because, there are some speakers, Steve Ballmer, Steve Ballmer, Microsoft's ex-CEO. He's on stage. He's like so much of movement. It's not like dancing, but he's jumping.
Wow.
He's sweating, jumping.
Wow. And is it a nice?
Well, really, really have a look. It's really motivational. His speeches are really good. Yeah, so much of energy. It comes with a lot of physical movement. And same with Tony Robbins, who is kind of lays so much emphasis on physiology and how do you show up. And then he comes and slaps and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
I during COVID, you could see how events and theater and shows and parties were all shut down, and I could see on myself and on my friends that this is a basic human need. This is not a nice to have thing. Theater and culture and dance is must have. It's like a food for the mind, a food for it's a kind of food, and we need to be fed with that, and we cannot go without it. And COVID made that as a big emphasis on how the lack of it is draining our humanity, and it's really we're unable to live without it anymore. So
okay, finally, tell us how can people reach you, and what are your services to your clients?
So yeah, go on my website. If you're a freelancer, then you can take my online course. It's 8 hours divided into 30-minute sessions, so you can learn and put into action all of the method, the Hime time method. And basically I work with managements and who take me for a 2-day workshop where I train their C-levels. And once I get their C-levels on that method and everyone's got a good digital ecosystem, then it's really easy to see the change throughout the company's hierarchy. So I work with companies who are able to train their C-levels, because trying to work from inside the company through other parts of the company is not as efficient as working on it from the top, and then it trickles down.
Okay, so thank you very much, Bat. I've already learned so much in such a short interview. There are a few things and perspectives rather that you shared, and that's like making me think, how do I deal with my productivity in my time and stuff. So it's really, really valuable, useful information. Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thank you very, very much, Ajay. And I just, if you could also publish my email and have the viewers just send me any question they want and any comment they want. I'm happy to answer emails. I don't answer them on the spot, but I always answer all of my emails. Sometimes it could even take a month, but I reply to every and each and one of the people who write me. So awesome. Do feel free to reach out with any questions. Even after a week, all of a sudden you have something you don't know exactly how to do, and tap and reach for advice. I'm happy to reply.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And guys, if you are looking into improving your productivity, this place, Bat's website, and there are a lot of blogs and videos on there where she will talk about how exactly you can put things in practice. It's not theoretical knowledge. It is something that you can really apply and see the results yourself. So I do encourage you to check it out. I'll put all the links down there. And if you've got some value from this interview, then do not forget to subscribe to this channel here, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you get notification to my future videos. I will see you again next week with an amazing guest. Until then, you take care and keep learning.